Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video we're going to be doing a driving comparison between a 2021 Cadillac Escalade and a 2021 Lincoln Navigator. First and foremost though, a huge shout out and thank you to the Larry Miller Ford Lincoln here in Provo for giving me some time with this Navigator. Check out their inventory in the link below. Let's get straight into the video. Quickly talk about visibility before we set off here on the Navigator. So first off, visibility of the hood's really good, and hopefully you can now see the heads-up display at this point. Sorry about the fan there. And then there's visibility through both of the mirrors. They do have blind spot monitoring, and then here's throughout the rest of the rear. You have a bunch of really large windows. It's easy to see all around, and let's set off. Heading off here in the 2021 Lincoln Navigator. First off, well, let's talk about the road noise and the ride quality. So from a ride quality perspective, definitely fits the criteria for a luxury SUV. It's really smooth. You don't get a whole lot of road noise. The engine's very quiet. That's one of the benefits of having a twin turbo V6 is you do get less engine noise, again, because, well, it's a little V6. Aside from that, we'll get a quick acceleration here. Woo! And that's not even the Excite mode. We'll actually pop it over into the Excite mode. And then we'll get another acceleration starting up here, but definitely good. We're at about 4,500 feet elevation, and so definitely having a turbocharged engine does have its benefits when we are at higher elevation like this. But aside from that, definitely refined. Definitely has a nice, again, smooth ride quality to it. It's quiet in the interior. The seats are very comfortable as well. I love the feeling of these seats, kind of how they hold you in place. They're not tight by any means, but at the same time, they kind of just, they give you kind of a hug. That's the best way for me to put it, is they hug you. And we'll get another acceleration here. Yeah, definitely really good in that Excite mode, and then we'll pop it back over into our normal mode, because that's kind of the driving mode that most of you are going to drive this car in most of the time, because again, it's a larger size luxury SUV, and so you're going to want to just kind of float along with the road. But let's talk about some other stuff like maneuverability, steering, all that kind of stuff. It is a bigger sized SUV, but if you're used to driving like a half-ton truck, this is going to be super easy to drive. It feels somewhat similar in size to that in terms of the turning and all that. A little bit better though, definitely has a better turning radius compared to a half-ton truck. It's really solid in that. And I want to see how this does over these bumps here. And if you're wondering, the rattling is because I have keys in the cup holder. That's not the Navigator. That is the keys I have in the cup holder, okay? But anyways, yeah, turning's good. It's easy to maneuver. The steering is very light, very effortless with the Navigator. Again, definitely lends to a luxury car experience. Something I like about the Navigator is all of the touch points feel and look very nice. Like the steering wheel, really nice leather. All of these controls have a nice feel to it on the steering wheel. The radio controls, all the stuff that you're going to use feels nice. I love the wood trim. The wood trim in this definitely feels very nice and upscale. Even the stuff that you just look at that you'll never touch still has a nice grainy feel to it, which I kind of prefer the grainy feel to the high gloss feel, but that's just personal preference. I know some people are the other way around, where they prefer the high gloss trim. But aside from that, let's kind of sum things up here with the Navigator. So first off, from an exterior aesthetic perspective, I think it's a really good looking SUV. Definitely differentiates itself, definitely has good road presence to it on the outside. And then from a driving perspective, it definitely has a really nice feeling to it. It's very smooth, it's really quiet. You get tons of torque from that turbocharged engine. Yes, you do feel a little bit of turbo lag, but it's not bad by any means. It's still a pretty responsive engine. And then as soon as you get in those turbos, this thing gets up and it moves. I mean, you guys heard the power figures, 450 horsepower, 500 pound-feet of torque when I did my walk-around review with this versus the Escalade. So definitely really solid from that perspective. And then again, the seats are very comfortable. The massaging function's great. I love how the seats hold you in place. Everything's really nice and comfortable in this. Tons of adjustability with the seat. So overall, the Navigator is a really nice luxury SUV. And again, if you guys watch my review, this is about $97,000 for everything you're getting here, and that Escalade that we're about to hop into is about $110,000. So there is a price difference between both of them. And with all that being said, let's go into the Escalade. about visibility before we set off here in the Escalade. So first off, visibility of the hood, really good. And again, notice heads-up display. Visibility through both the mirrors, and they do have blind spot monitoring. And then here's throughout the rest of the rear, and let's set off. Here is now setting off here in the 2021 Escalade. First off, let's talk about the road noise and the ride quality. So from a ride quality perspective, it is exceptionally smooth. The MagneRide suspension alongside the air suspension just makes this so smooth. I love the feeling that you get. Obviously, you've got a ton of adjustability from both systems, and so it just lends to an extremely smooth driving perspective. My last sentence didn't make any sense, but aside from me not making sense, you guys can see acceleration's pretty good. Now, yes, the Escalade is a little bit slower compared to the Navigator. It has less horsepower, it has less torque, and it's also naturally aspirated, whereas the Navigator is turbocharged. So at elevation, this is already going to be slower because it has less power, but then on top of that, we're at elevation, so this has a little bit more power loss. That being said, this isn't slow. It's just slower than the Navigator, but again, being luxury vehicles, it's not a huge deal. People don't buy these to, you know, drag race with it and all that. Aside from the acceleration, turn-in's really nice. This is really easy to drive. I feel like both of them feel about the same size. This one feels like it might be slightly smaller, very slight amount, but unless you drive them back to back, you're not going to be able to perceive the difference. If you don't drive them back to back, they'll both feel about the same. Aside from that, going over stuff, I noticed that the Escalade seems to handle it a little bit better than the Navigator. Again, it's one of those things where unless you drive them back to back, you're not really going to be able to perceive this, but this feels just a little bit smoother, and it feels like it kind of just handles everything a little bit better with the suspension compared to the Navigator. Especially this part up here will really show us, going over these little bumps and such. Yeah, it's very slight, but you can definitely perceive a difference with this versus the Navigator. This does feel a little bit smoother. But what about the other daily driver stuff? The seats and all that kind of stuff. From a seat perspective, the cushioning on both the seats is really nice. Both of them feel very plush. The Navigator definitely feels like it, just because you have all those different bolsters on it, you feel like you're kind of held in the seat a little bit more. This feels a little bit more loose, if that makes sense. Again, the Navigator's not tight by any means, but you've got kind of more bolsters, whereas this has a little bit less bolstering. I guess, to kind of, I guess, fully compare things, these seats feel a little bit more comfortable on my butt. The Navigator feels a bit more comfortable on my back. I don't know what other way to put it. They're both really nice seats, but that's kind of how they feel different to me in terms of sitting in them. Both great, both have massage function, and I mean, either way, you're gonna love either seat. But now that we're kind of stuck in traffic, I guess we'll sum things up here with the Escalade and the overall driving experience with it. So again, from a exterior perspective, I think it's a really good looking vehicle. Definitely differentiates itself. I will say one thing here with the Escalade. I don't know if it's just because this is very new, right? The Navigator's been out since 2018 with that body style, whereas this is brand new for 2021. And the amount of attention that the Escalade gets is crazy. Like, just so many people looking at it and constantly asking me about it and all that kind of stuff. And so yeah, definitely gets a lot of attention. But I'm sure the Navigator, when it first came out, is the exact same story. Now that's been out for a few years and people have seen it, I think that's really the main thing. But again, stylistically, it's really good looking on the outside. I do prefer the blackout package on this, but that's just personal preference. Interior wise, absolutely beautiful. All the touch points look really nice. The one thing I will say, going for the Escalade, all the leather is definitely softer to the touch, definitely looks a little bit nicer than the Navigator. But again, this is $13,000 more, and that is kind of part of the $13,000 is you get this nicer looking interior setup. But again, all the touch points are really nice, just like in the Navigator. It's really easy to steer, it's really easy to drive, all that kind of stuff. And so yeah, from a driving perspective, they're both very close The Navigator is a little bit faster, but this one feels a little bit more luxurious, feels a little bit smoother. And so it kind of depends on the experience you're looking for. And again, obviously the whole like dash look, I guess that's something that's huge for a bunch of people with these vehicles. I think both of them have nice looking dashes. This one definitely looks a little bit more modern. The Navigator has kind of more of an analog setup, so it just kind of depends on what you prefer. Both of them are great vehicles. They both drive really nice. And what I would recommend for you to do is, if you can, drive them back to back, pick which one you like the most. But again, for my take, if you want a faster vehicle, Navigator. If you want more luxury, Escalade. Now that's going to sum things up for our driving comparison between this 2021 Cadillac Escalade and this 2021 Lincoln Navigator. And again, a huge shout out and thank you to the Larry Miller Ford Lincoln here in Provo for giving me some time with the Navigator. Check out the inventory in the link below. I'll see all of you in the next video.